Welcome to the Inglorious Blasters podcast, a Star Wars Legion podcast talking anything and everything glorious or inglorious about the game. My name is Corey, and with me today is John and Brendan. How's it going, my Womp Rats?
Going good. Happy to be on.
No, I'm okay with that one.
Okay, that's good. That's good to hear.
I'm not quite 2 meters tall, but, close enough.
Close enough. I think I'd much rather be a Womp Rat than any of the other insults I gave.
So far. At least they can be, compared to exhaust ports.
Alrighty, today on the podcast, everyone, we got some fan mail again. Woo! That's exciting.
Hooray!
And then we're going to be doing our glorious versus inglorious debate on Pathfinders. I'm going to have inglorious, and then Brendan is going to have glorious, and John will be our judge today. So stick around, should be a fun one. With that, Brendan, how about you read our fan mail?
Yep, so we've got an email from Liam. And, firstly, Liam's thanking us for doing our podcast. He binged us all in the past couple days, so he's definitely a newer listener, and we thank him for listening. He's got a couple questions for us, and we'll go one at a time here. So first question is, he's considering starting Shadow Collective and doesn't know where to get started and what's good for this current meta. Jury's still kind of out on Shadow Collective, in my opinion, and what is good. We've seen people do pike spams, where it's basically just all pikes and maybe Maul or Gar Saxon thrown in there. We've seen people do buses with swoops. We've seen people do buses with Black Suns. There's even been some people who have done basically nothing but Black Sun. I think anything's wide open. So as for how to get started, if you don't have anything at all, I think minimum to get start is maybe get 3 of the starter boxes for the Shadow Collective, because then you have 3 Pikes and 3 Black Sun and 3 Mandalorians, as well as Maul and Rookcast.
That's what I was going to suggest, actually. Just get 3 of the starter set and see what you like from there. Do you like more speedy Mandos that have better saves? You can also consider picking up Gar Saxon. I think he's a really good commander. That compel keyword with the Pikes usually helps out a lot if you don't have the capo in the Pike squad, because they are a Courage 1 unit, so if they get 1 suppression and they don't rally that off, it really helps out your Pike gun line. So that's another suggestion I have. It just depends on how you like to play. Do you like Jedi or like Force powers? Then Maul is definitely a monster in that faction, so that's probably my go-to.
Yeah, I think 3 starter boxes is the right number, and then throw in Gar. Just about everything in there is pretty good. Like, we've seen Black Sun lists do good. We've seen Pike Spam lists do good. I think Maul Pikes would probably be my favorite if I had to choose one, but that might just be personal preference. So I think right now it's pretty open-ended as far as Shadow Collective go.
And then I'll also add, if you really like the idea of dropping off Black Suns from a bus, go ahead and get a bus. You're going to have a great time.
Or even use it to drop off Maul.
Either way.
He's already starting with a wound. Doesn't hurt to give him some armor.
That's right. And then he's also wondering about if the Republic is going to get their... he wants our thoughts on the Republic getting their own E-webs like in the Clone Wars TV show. I would love one personally, just so we can get some more units in the game. I feel like that's an easy add. They already have the mechanics, kind of.
Yeah, the Clone Wars factions don't have any emplacement troopers yet, so it would be nice to see something get released, whether that's something like an E-web or an FD cannon or some new core options that also have the detachments. Like, we've got the mortars and the Mark IIs in the Civil War faction. So it might be nice to see them be matching the Civil War factions with having emplacement options.
Yeah, I think the emplacement options would provide some nice fire support platforms. I couldn't see them doing a surge to crit like the E-Web, because then I think that creates all kinds of possibilities from like Z6 emplacement surge crit situations that you could set up. But who knows? Because Cody is going to open the doors to that with being surge crit, and even the ISPs. If you do the pilot on there, you can get surge crit during a fire support. So I guess it's a possibility. Right now, I was thinking about this. The AT-RT with the rotary cannon would probably be the most similar thing to an E-Web. Like if you just chill and aim shoot using it as a fire support platform. But it'll be interesting to see what they do. There's not a whole lot of GAR releases in the near future that we know about. So I am open to anything and everything that they're willing to give the faction.
Yeah, definitely. And Liam also goes on to say he's currently a Republic player, even though he's interested in getting into Shadow Collective. And he's also wondering how best to use the infantry support platform for the Republic. I personally have it in the box, still covered in plastic, and I have yet to play against it, but I like the idea of the ISP. If you can get a good table and good shots off, I think it's very good, especially with the one pilot that gives it surge to crit for fire supports. If you're big into fire supports playing Republic, I can see a one of in an army being good, but not a double heavy list. I don't think it would work out so well. But I'm waiting to see somebody do something crazy with it, because I don't think it's seeing a lot of play in general.
That's my thoughts too. It's not seeing enough play at the moment to like see some of the potential, but I think it's got potential for sure. I think you could definitely set up some good fire supports. It's just I'm not a Republic player, so I have to refer to John. John, have you played any games with the ISP?
So I did play one game with it, just in my kind of PAX play testing that I've been doing with trying different force users and different units that I've kind of left unexplored up to this point. So I did a Anakin, Padme, 2 clone heavies, 2 pikes, pike capo, and ISP with beam. So if you count the 3 shots with beam, if you can line it up, and then the phase 1 heavies and the pikes, you had 7 range 4 shots. I did not get to do the best play testing because I had a early misjudge movement for Anakin, which allowed for him to be shot by a number of units, followed by panicking off the board.
Might as well call him Panicking. Oh.
Yeah, that was pretty much game over. But
Oh, man.
I think if you're going to do the ISP, you have to pretty much be going after a full-on fire support list. I think 1 is the right number. I don't think you want 2. As far as the weapon options, I like the beam. I think the problem with beam is it doesn't fit into the meta right now. The 2 red, 2 white, you're probably going to get 2.5 hits is the math on it. So everything being in heavy cover or all the pike spam, rebel DLTs with situational awareness, you're pretty much, if you get a crit, great, but otherwise you're just kind of pushing out suppression. What is the blaster cannon? I don't think you want to be at range 3 with this thing. I definitely think you want to explore the range 4 options. So I think the way to go is the missile pods with the 4 red and doing kind of like a whole fire support themed army. One that I kind of quickly threw together would be 2 clone commanders. So you're going to get 2 sources of directs. So you're going to have a lot of face-ups. Padme, just so that she can generate shareable tokens. R2-D2 to keep the thing healed up. 4 phase 1s, 2 with RPS, 2 with Z6. a bowcaster Wookiee with O-Push and Tenacity, and then the ISP with the missile pods, the pilot that grants you the surge crit on the fire supports, and then link targeting array. That comes in at 789, so you've got a pretty substantial blue player list. And kind of the idea is you would throw face-ups on your RPSs or your Z6s. I kind of like the 2 RPSs because then what you can do is almost like an alpha strike. You could either do the full boat of 4 red with the fire-supported RPS, or you could even split fire them with Gunslinger and then fire support each shot. So you can set up some pretty crazy like alpha strike situations, and with Padme being in there to just keep the thing dodged up and all the shareable aims from Exemplar, you can really kind of cripple your opponent early, which is what I think you need to do with the thing. And it was kind of cool that I had enough points to then throw in a squad of Wookiees, so if anything's getting past you or going to flank you, the Wookiees are there to intercept and potentially get 2 whacks at them if Padme has the shareable standby. So I think it allows you to do some really cool ranged fire supports, but also you have a little bit of a melee hedge with the Wookiee warriors in there. So that's kind of where I see it fitting in personally.
Nice. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it does. I gotta say 2 things though. Number one, I can't wait to see how much the ISP potentially could get a buff when Cody comes out. Because we don't know his command cards yet, but he's got direct vehicle, so it'd be nice to always have a command on it if you decide to play an ISP list. The other thing is a little bit of a gripe, not about the ISP, but about the beam keyword in general. I would like to see it get standardized, because currently only the Empire has a beam weapon that has blast, and meanwhile all the other beam weapons have to deal with cover. I think that it should be... Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the fact that the Empire's got it in Blizzard Force with Overwhelming Barrage. But I think that beam should be standardized across the board to probably have blast. They don't have a lot of dice in the attack. And maybe if you do some other thing, like you can't fire support a beam attack, it could be interesting. I know you can't fire support the second of the beam attacks. But I think that beam should be standardized and probably have just blast on it in general across the board.
In the current meta, I think beam is not so great unless it has blast, because inevitably things are going to be in heavy cover. That's always the case. So when you have such a small dice pool and you're going to shave 2 off the top, you're pretty much like you're hoping for a crit, but a lot of times you're just putting a suppression down. And so if you're going to spend 100 plus points on a unit, you want to at least feel like you can do some reliable damage. So to put blast on it, that would be pretty sweet. I think that would instantly kind of fix some of the problems. And then a points reduction, I think, would make sense as well.
I mean, if you give it blast, I think it's good with that at that point, because it's throwing out 2 4-die attacks. Because I mean, another major means of beam is on the saber tank, and that is only 2 dice. It's beam 2, but it's still 30 points. It hasn't gone down.
That's way too expensive. There are
now,
much
if
better
you put
weapon
blast
options
on there, but if it's got blast on there, I'm kind of cool with keeping it around there, because then you're getting off 6 dice that are all red, because it's got beam 2.
Right, at that point it becomes an easier pill to swallow. It's like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
Let's pretend all the pike dodges are gone, and then now suddenly you got 6 dice coming at stuff.
You still have to deal with dodges, but
But yeah.
At least you're getting through the cover automatically.
Very cool. Appreciate the fan mail, Liam. Hope you do.
Yes,
hope you continue to listen and enjoy our podcast. How about we move on over to our debate today? What do you guys say?
Sounds like a plan.
Brendan says no.
I mean, full transparency to the listeners. I am not prepared, so we'll see how this goes.
That's okay. Neither am I. It's going to go great. Brendan, how about you tell the
how I
listeners
live.
about...
90% of my life is unprepared, so.
Brendan, how about you tell us about what the Pathfinders could do with their unit card?
Yeah. So, Rebel Pathfinders. They are special forces for the Rebels. Surprisingly. It's not like it's in their name. They're a trooper unit. 1 health per model. 2 courage. White defense die. They surge to attack and defense. They have a range 1 to 3 blaster, the A300 blaster rifle, which is 2 white dice. And unarmed for melee, they have 1 black die. They have Danger Sense 3, Dauntless, and Infiltrate. And they can take a heavy weapon, a training upgrade, a comms upgrade, a gear upgrade, an armament upgrade, and a grenade upgrade. Their armament upgrade is free, so if you're not taking it, shame on you. It's the A300 long-range config or A300 short-range config, depending on which side you choose. Long range is range 1 to 4, a single white die, and you can reconfigure it, so when you recover you can flip it over. And then you can get the short range config, which is range 1 to 2, 1 red die, and same thing, you can reconfigure it. Their heavy weapon upgrade options are both unique. There's Pow, who has 2 health, range 1 to 4. He shoots a red and a white die. He becomes the leader of the squad, and the squad gains Inspire 1. And then Bistan, who also has 2 health, has a range 1 to 4 gun that's 1 black and 4 white that exhausts, and the gun has Impact 1 and Ion 1. The squad itself is 56 points, Bistan is 28 points, and Pow is 20 points.
Awesome. Thanks for that. So just really quickly, just for the listeners, if you guys don't know how this works. So obviously Brendan is going to have Glorious, and then I'm going to have Inglorious for the debate. So we may be prepared 3 points, or maybe we just are going to wing the 3 points.
We're winging it.
We're winging it today. And then we have a totally unbiased judge, John. So, and then he's going to decide for all the Legion community who is the winner.
That is a lot of responsibility. All
Absolutely.
of the Legion community.
All of them.
Who
All
I
of
forget.
the- all of
Us
them.
about to disagree.
I
All
forget
of them
who is
have the same
arguing.
opinion.
Yes, you must all listen to any thoughts and advice that we give. Whoever is arguing Glorious, I already forget. If you want to bribe me now, so that you can potentially have a result that goes in your favor, because I'm completely unbiased.
How does a Nova Open 2022 pin sound?
Oh, that's pretty
Ooh.
substantial. I'll take that.
There we go. All right. See? You've already lost,
It's
Corey.
a
I'm the
FOMO
judge.
pen. I wish I was there.
Uphill battle for me now. Gee, thanks, Brendan. John, who do you want to hear from first, Glorious or Inglorious?
I'm gonna go Glorious. I'm anxious to find out
Damn.
what is good about these guys, because I don't see anything.
All right, Brendan, take it away.
All right. So, Rebel Pathfinders are glorious. Number one, because they're a very thematic unit. We like, I always bring up how thematic units are. They do things that you would expect based on the movie. They infiltrate. They have some decent courage. They make use of being shot at and trying not to get killed. With the Danger Sense and Dauntless, which is great. So with the Danger Sense 3, they can choose to remove their suppression tokens, and when defending against range attacks, they can roll extra defense die for each suppression token they have, up to 3 if they have 3 suppression, which is great to increase their survivability. I mean, they're rolling white surging defense dice, but now you can roll extra dice to help you. And something not everybody always realizes is Danger Sense can even help take care of Pierce. So it's like the lighter version of Impervious. So it gives you a little bit extra survivability if you've got good white defense dice, which is pretty nice. And then, obviously, they've got some extra suppression, so it's really nice to have Dauntless on them, because if they're suppressed and not panicked, you can take more suppression to make them a little bit more survivable, and perform free move actions, which is, great. They're taking suppression. They don't mind it so much, because you can still have them, if you need to, double move somewhere, just by taking more suppression, as long as they're not panicked. And Infiltrate is a great keyword. It lets you deploy anywhere on the table beyond range 3 of enemy units. That could really be huge on objectives like recover the supplies. It could really give you an advantage, or it could, if somebody's not thinking about you infiltrating, you could drop them at an angle where they've got a perfect line of sight on some snipers potentially. Not to mention, things like Breakthrough. If somebody's not deploying well enough, you can just deploy them right in the other deployment zone and automatically have a scoring unit as long as they survive. Now, as for the heavy weapon upgrades, nobody I've seen really takes PAL, even though he's the cheaper of the two options. I think, if you've got the points, he's great, because he adds an extra red die into their attack pool. And if you're running multiple Pathfinders, Inspire 1 isn't necessarily a bad thing to have if they're not near your commander, because they're going to get suppression, but you don't want them to panic. So having somebody who can help take a little extra off is not a bad thing. Most people take Biston, though. And apparently there's a whole church about Biston. So shout out to the Church of Biston.
Right. Do you subscribe to the Church of Biston?
I don't, because I don't play Rebels. I have some of them assembled, but I haven't gotten around to actually painting or playing them yet, because I am horrible at painting faces. So Rebels are very much on the last of the list. Nice. But Biston is a really good model. You're already surging to hit. You're throwing 5 more dice into this attack pool. And at range 3, we're talking a full squad is throwing 13 dice, if my math is correct, which is a lot of dice for one squad to be throwing out. Not to mention the Impact 1 and Ion 1 is a great little deterrent. It's not amazing, but, it lets you get a little extra in on some armor or some droids, and potentially, limit some activations that normally wouldn't be so limited. And then, the free armament upgrade with the configs. All right, you can make them a little bit more survivable because they have a range 4 shooting option, and both their heavy options have range 4 guns. Or if you need them to pack a little extra punch, you have the short range to be throwing some red dice. The few times I've played against Rebel Pathfinders, I found them to be very annoying to try and kill because of the danger sense. And if they're also in heavy cover, it makes them a lot tougher to kill. Especially if the dice are hot for defense. And even if you just take them naked, they're a pretty survivable unit for only 56 points. They can do a lot for you in an army. That's all I got for now.
Alrighty. Well. Church of Biston. Time to burn this mother down.
the congregation of 5 people.
That's right.
You
Alrighty,
can count
sorry
them
to
on
disappoint.
one hand. Sorry. I'm trying to be
you're good.
unbiased here. Sorry.
Alrighty, no problem. So, Brendan, you brought up good points. I guess I won't try and counter argue. I'm just going to bring up some of my points because I feel opposite of what you just said. So, gasp. So I think infiltrate is a trap most of the time. I like infiltrate on Imperial units or something with red armor, or Maul, right? Because Maul can infiltrate. You have a lot more survivability in case you like royally mess up your infiltrate. Pathfinders, like, again, use your best judgment, but usually never works out the way you want it to. If you dive too far into enemy lines, you're just going to be picked apart. So most of the time, in my experience, whenever I play against Pathfinders, it ends up being like a Scout 2 or Scout 3 move, which is not nothing, but it's not like, whoa, this is crazy. This is so good. So that's just been my experience against Pathfinders infiltrate specifically. And then to tackle the Church of Biston, I mean, we all know what it does. It's a gigantic slot machine. And it's a slot machine that does worse at range 4. So you're like kind of incentivized to go at range 3 to like really open up. But like when you get into range 3, you open up yourself to more firepower from the enemy. And I know you have Danger Sense, but Danger Sense 3 doesn't feel great with today's dice pools being pretty large. It's a good keyword for getting 1 or 2 hits while you're fully charged. Like if they end up with like 1 crit over the heavy cover or like 2 after heavy, right? It's a pretty good Danger Sense roll. But the bigger dice pools, I don't think you're gonna do well. Like I like Biston a lot because like I like slot machines, but I hate the fact that it exhausts. And I know Cassian is there to like help him out, like the one time to like get a free recover, but that's just like the one time. It just feels bad, in my opinion. It feels bad to have them just like sit there, recover, shoot most of the game if that's the role you intend them for. And if you want that role for them, they cost like 84 points, and I feel like that's 84 points that could be spent better and like less slot machiney, if that makes sense. There are some great rebel characters that you could just take instead. I mean, if you want to, I know it's not the same role, but like Chewie's at 90 points, so like that's 6 points more, and he actually does something for your army. Cassian is 90 points, and well, without his upgrades, and like he's sitting there sniping a bunch of people, so like that's a character that does something. I feel like the combination of like infiltrate and their courage value of 2 is probably going to get them in trouble most of the time, because it's like it feels like a trap to just keep stacking suppression on to supercharge Danger Sense, because you're still only going to get most of the time the one action. So those are my thoughts on these Pathfinder boys.
Valid thoughts.
Any you want to give any pushback, Brendan, or should we just hand it over to John to burn this church down?
I will say one thing I didn't state that, does make them even more survivable early on is with the extra 2 points, giving them duck and cover. Because, if they don't have any suppression, you can then immediately give them some extra suppression to activate Danger Sense sooner. But obviously, your point of them not wanting all the suppression is, suppression's not great. If the Rebels had somebody like a Commander Vader, I think that, they'd be amazing. I don't think
I agree.
Any debate about that. So obviously the workaround is you bring a Rebel officer, have them die, and then make sure Chewbacca's enraged, and you're set.
I was going to say either that or just throw it on Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight.
Yeah.
I mean, like a courage bubble of 8 is no joke.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, throw a Jin in there also with her courage bubble of 3, which is pretty good. I mean, again, it's thematic. That's really what the Pathfinders are. You know, they go in, they soak up the suppression, hopefully allowing the rest of your army to actually succeed at whatever's trying to be done.
I don't think I can argue that. They are definitely thematic.
Definitely thematic.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've seen a game yet where they don't die, so yeah, thematic.
It's just like the ending of Rogue One. Yeah. So a couple things. I was taking some notes and running some stats just because I was curious by the size of the dice pool. So I'll give you guys some numbers, and the numbers will paint the picture of the decision. So I did Pathfinders with Biston. So no upgrades, 86 points. Brendan's already fallen asleep, so I'll talk fast. I like the look when I say, I'm going to go through some numbers, and then everyone's eyes gloss over. So it'll be quick. So 86 points, range 3, 12 white, 1 black with an aim, 5.9 hits. Range 4, which I feel like that's where you need to be, because I think when you guys get, or when you put these guys in range 3 of things, they just basically, they become a juicy 86 point kill point target. So at range 4, 4.4 hits with the aim, 8 white, 1 black. And then comparable units to that I looked at were Pike with the DLT, or whatever the Pike gun is. The
Disruptor, but yeah.
The Disruptor. I looked at Rebel DLT, Rebel Captain DLT, and then Rebel Vets. The Pike, 64 points, 4.7 hits, so that's better than the Pathfinders. A DLT without a Captain, 4.8, better than the Pathfinders. DLT with the Captain, 5.4, better than the Pathfinders. And Rebel Veterans, 74 points, 5.0. So pretty much all 4 of those units have better hits on average for 15 to 20 points cheaper than the Pathfinders do. So you're paying a premium for Infiltrate, which, like Corey said, I think that puts you in trouble more often than not. And the danger sense is nice, but I always feel like these guys get one-shotted, so that never has a chance to really, like, charge up, if you know what I mean. So I just think for 4.4 hits at range 4, which is going to be, 2.4 saves after heavy cover, unless you really get something out in the open, or I've seen a couple cool cases where people infiltrate them like at the very top of a building where they're pretty much never going to be able to jump down, but they're going to be in heavy cover the whole game. That can be interesting, because then when you try to take pot shots at them, like, it starts charging up the danger sense. But for the most part, kind of like Brendan was saying, I've never seen them survive a game. And at 86 plus points, because then you're going to potentially put some upgrades on them, I just don't think they're worth it when you have this whole other plethora of options in the Rebel faction between Vets, DLTs, and now Pikes. So I'm going to go Inglorious. Sorry, Brendan.
Makes sense. I mean, the one thing I was going to bring up, because is if you have the points for Rebel Pathfinders and you want to bring a special forces that does something similar, I think you'd bring a full commando squad with a sniper, because they're 8 points cheaper and you've got low profile.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah,
think the low
definitely.
profile will do more for you than the Danger Sense 3.
Oh, I didn't even consider that, but yes. And then, John, you brought up an interesting comparison I thought of in my head when you were mentioning that when people throw a Pathfinder unit up on a tall building and it just sits there at range 4, would you rather have that or an FD? And I think my answer is an FD. Because the FD turret's cheaper, shoots farther, and probably more reliably most of the time.
Yeah.
So, like, that was an interesting thought I had, too. Like, if you're using them for that role, there's already something like that.
I will say that at least with the Pathfinders, they could infiltrate to a decent position. On
True.
FD only has that special ability on rapid reinforcement.
True. Very true. But either way,
Which I think is still hilarious.
good debate. Thank you, Brendan.
Thank you, Corey.
Thank you, John.
Very
For your
nicely done.
an uphill battle.
The Nova pin didn't help you out. I'm sorry. I will allow you to
I'm
keep
going to
it.
keep it then.
It's mine. I'm.
It
No
was
take
contingent
backs.
upon my winning.
The craziest thing is this whole. I was playing around on Tell Me the Odds, which is how I run my stats, and I was looking at Tabletop Admiral, and when you look at the cards, they're still printed with the original cost, and it is shocking to me that Rebel Pathfinders, when they released, the original point cost was 68 points. Now it's 56 base, but 68 points for a 4-model white save unit just seems like insane to me.
Well, I mean, like, that makes sense. It was the first infiltrating unit, I think the first in the game. So they were like, well, let's not break the game. So I think they skewed on caution rather than, like, you know, I can't find the words, but yeah, they just ended up skewing on caution rather
I'd
than
always
like
prefer
aggressively costing it.
Yeah, I'd always prefer to see a new release be a little overcosted rather than a little undercosted, especially if it's some new keywords. Otherwise we have situations like R2D2, who went through 2 points erratas and went up by 10 points each time. Because the ability was only 35
Yeah, 35.
points.
Cheapest activation around.
I do not miss that at all.
No.
No, not at all. Alrighty, well, I appreciate it, gentlemen. It was a lot of fun
nice
today.
Job, you guys.
If you guys did not think our judgment was correct, well, we want to hear about it. How about you guys send us an email at swlingloriousblasters@gmail.com. You can like our page on Facebook. Search for The Inglorious Blasters, a Star Wars Legion podcast. Follow us on Instagram at SWLIngloriousBlasters. And then please subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, or your preferred podcasting app. We are on all the major ones, and if we're not on your favorite one, please let us know. Consider giving us a rating and maybe leave a review. It would really help us out.
Additionally, if you want to reach out to us more regularly than by email, feel free to join our Discord. You can find it on most of our homepages on the various podcast apps. If you're having trouble finding it there, you can always find it on our Facebook or reach out to us via email, and I'll be happy to email you a link to it. We're also on the main Legion Discord with our names followed by Inglorious Blasters.
And with that, I think we can land this ship, gentlemen. Stay glorious, everyone. I'm Corey.
I'm John.
I'm Brendan. Don't die on a beach.